Welcome back. Coinology. The 1987 United States 1-cent coin, commonly referred to as the penny, is a fascinating artifact that represents not just currency but a tangible piece of American history. Minted at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the D Mint mark located on the obverse side of the coin beneath the date, this coin is part of the Lincoln Cent series, which has been in continuous production since 1909. The Lincoln Cent itself was introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a historical figure rather than the traditional allegorical representations of liberty. The 1987 D penny, while seemingly ordinary in circulation, carries nuances in design, composition, and historical context that make it a subject of interest for numismatists, collectors, and those intrigued by the subtle stories told by coins. From a physical standpoint, the 1987 D penny has a mass of precisely 2.5 grams, with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters and a thickness of 1.52 millimeters. Its edge is uniformly smooth, a design choice consistent with all Lincoln cents of the era. The coin's composition is primarily zinc, accounting for approximately 97.5% of the weight, with a copper plating covering the surface to give it the familiar reddish-bronze hue. This composition was a result of the U.S. Mint's decision in 1982 to shift from the previous 95% copper composition to the zinc core design, primarily as a cost-saving measure in response to rising copper prices. Despite this change in materials, the 1987 D penny maintains the same weight and size specifications, ensuring that it fits seamlessly into coin-operated machines and everyday currency circulation. The obverse design of the 1987 D penny features the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. Brenner's design is a testament to both artistic skill and historical reverence, depicting Lincoln in a right-facing profile with a solemn yet determined expression. The inscription "In God We Trust" arcs across the upper edge of the coin, serving as a national motto and spiritual reflection, while liberty is inscribed to the left of Lincoln's portrait. The date, 1987, sits to the right of the portrait, immediately above the mint mark D, symbolizing the Denver Mint's production of the coin. The fine details of Lincoln's hair, the bow tie, and the contours of his face are subtly executed, reflecting the intricacies of the original engraving. Over decades of circulation, these details are prone to wear, which makes well-preserved examples particularly desirable among collectors, especially those in mint-state conditions such as MS65 or higher. Flipping the coin to the reverse, one observes the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design replaced the earlier wheat ears reverse, known for its symbolic representation of prosperity and agricultural roots. The Lincoln Memorial reverse depicts a finely detailed rendition of the memorial in Washington, D.C., with columns that echo the architectural style of classical Greek temples, symbolizing strength, democracy, and reverence for Lincoln's enduring legacy. Above the memorial, the phrase "United States of America" is inscribed, while "E pluribus unum," meaning "out of many, one," is etched directly above the memorial, reinforcing the national unity symbolized by Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War. At the bottom edge of the coin, the denomination 1 cent is displayed prominently, a reminder of the coin's value despite its small size. The meticulous engraving allows even the figure of Lincoln, visible within the memorial in higher quality coins, to be discerned, which is a remarkable detail for such a small coin and a testament to the mint's precision. The production of the 1987 D penny occurred at a time when the U.S. economy was experiencing shifts in manufacturing, globalization, and commodity costs. The Denver Mint, one of the primary mints in the United States alongside Philadelphia and San Francisco, was responsible for producing an impressive quantity of pennies in 1987. Estimates suggest that over 3 billion pennies were minted that year across all facilities, with the Denver Mint alone contributing over 1.2 billion coins. Despite this large production number, the 1987 D penny holds interest for collectors because of its variations, including subtle die differences, double die errors, and striking anomalies that occasionally occur during high-speed production processes. These anomalies, while rare, can dramatically increase a coin's market value, sometimes by several hundred or even thousands of dollars depending on severity and demand. One significant aspect of the 1987 D penny is its place within the broader historical narrative of American coinage. Lincoln cents have spanned numerous decades, with changes in composition, design, and minting technology reflecting broader societal trends. The 1987 D penny represents a period when copper prices had forced the U.S. Mint to adapt, yet before the onset of advanced computer-aided design processes that would later refine die production in the 1990s and 2000s. Collectors often view this era as a transitional phase, bridging the traditional artistry of early 20th century coinage with modern efficiency in mass production. Moreover, the coin carries a sense of nostalgia, representing a period when pennies still circulated widely in daily transactions, before the rise of electronic payments and diminishing copper coin usage. From a market perspective, the 1987 D penny has seen fluctuating interest depending on condition, rarity of specific error types, and collector demand. In circulated condition, these coins are relatively common and generally valued at their face value of 1 cent. However, uncirculated specimens, particularly those graded MS65 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, can fetch a significantly higher price. Exceptional examples with unique minting errors or pristine surfaces can enter the market with valuations in the tens or hundreds of dollars, while rarer anomalies or coins with historical significance have been rumored to reach astronomical estimates in certain speculative markets, with some sources suggesting hypothetical market values in the multi-million-dollar range for unique specimens. While a single 1987 D penny may not typically command such extreme prices, the potential for rare variations provides a compelling reason for collectors to examine each coin carefully. In addition to numismatic value, the 1987 D penny carries symbolic significance. As one of the last decades to feature the Lincoln Memorial reverse before the introduction of the Union Shield design in 2010, this coin is part of a lineage that preserves both the memory of Lincoln and the artistry of mid-20th century coin design. For historians, educators, and collectors, the coin serves as a tactile connection to American history, economics, and culture. Its presence in coin collections, educational settings, and even casual circulation reflects the intersection of monetary utility and historical preservation. For young collectors, the 1987 D penny often serves as an introduction to the deeper study of coins, inspiring interest in minting processes, historical figures, and the subtle artistry that can be found on small everyday objects. The process of collecting 1987 D pennies also involves understanding grading systems and condition assessments. Coins are evaluated on factors including luster, strike quality, surface preservation, and eye appeal. A coin exhibiting full original luster, with sharp details on Lincoln's hair and the memorial columns, is highly prized. Minor imperfections, such as scratches or discoloration, can significantly affect a coin's grade and market value. Professional grading services have standardized these assessments, providing collectors with reliable benchmarks to evaluate the quality of their specimens. As a result, even a common 1987 D penny can become a collector's prized possession if it demonstrates exceptional preservation or an unusual minting characteristic. The 1987 D Lincoln cent continues to reveal deeper layers of meaning and intrigue when one moves beyond its surface appearance and looks into the world of minting errors, collector psychology, and the hidden journeys that individual coins take from the moment they are struck to the day they are discovered decades later. Every coin begins its life inside the Denver Mint, where enormous presses operate at incredible speeds, striking hundreds of coins every minute. Each blank zinc planchet is fed into the press, squeezed between two dies with immense pressure, and in a fraction of a second it becomes a finished penny bearing the image of Abraham Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial. Even though this process is highly automated, it is not perfect, and it is within these imperfections that some of the most valuable and fascinating 1987 D pennies are born. Errors can happen in many ways. Sometimes the dies that strike the coins develop tiny cracks or chips, which then appear as raised lines or blobs on the surface of the finished coins. Other times the dies may be slightly misaligned, causing a doubled image on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's face. These are known as doubled die errors, and they are among the most sought-after varieties in the world of Lincoln cents. A 1987 D penny with a strong doubled die on "In God We Trust" or on the date can be worth many times more than a normal example, especially if it is in excellent condition. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly centered when struck, leaving part of the design missing and part of the blank planchet exposed. These dramatic errors can look strange and beautiful at the same time, and collectors often pay premium prices for them. Another fascinating category is the clipped planchet error, where a piece of the metal blank is missing before the coin is struck. This results in a penny with a curved or straight section missing from its edge. When such an error occurs on a 1987 D penny, it turns an otherwise ordinary coin into a unique collectible, one that can be easily recognized even by someone with little numismatic experience. There are also wrong planchet errors, in which a penny is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or metal. While these are extremely rare, they are the kind of discovery that can make headlines and create enormous excitement in the collecting community. The idea that a small 1-cent coin could one day be worth an extraordinary sum of money captures the imagination of people around the world. Stories circulate of rare pennies selling for thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars at auction, and while these prices usually apply to very specific, ultra-rare varieties from earlier years, the hope that a 1987 D penny might hide a similar secret keeps collectors searching through their change. The figure of $253 million that is often mentioned in dramatic discussions of coin values represents the theoretical or speculative value of an absolutely unique, perfect, historically significant specimen, something that would stand alone in the entire numismatic world. While the average 1987 D penny will never reach such heights, the dream of finding something extraordinary in something so small is part of what makes coin collecting so magical. Beyond errors, the condition of a coin plays a crucial role in determining its value. A 1987 D penny that has been circulating for decades will show signs of wear. Lincoln's cheek may be smooth, the fine lines in his hair may be faded, and the Lincoln memorial on the reverse may look flat and dull. These coins are common and usually only worth face value. But a penny that was carefully saved from circulation, perhaps taken directly from a mint roll and stored in a protective holder, can look almost as fresh as the day it was made. Such coins display bright original luster, sharp details, and clean surfaces, and when graded by professional services, they can receive high mint state grades like MS66, MS67, or even higher. As the grade rises, so does the value, because truly perfect coins are much rarer than worn ones, even for years with huge mintages. The historical context of 1987 also adds depth to this small copper-colored coin. In that year, the United States was in the late Cold War era, with global politics shifting and technological advances beginning to transform everyday life. Computers were becoming more common in offices and homes, and the seeds of the digital age were being planted. Yet, in people's pockets, the same simple penny continued to circulate, connecting modern life with traditions that stretched back more than a century. The 1987 D penny is therefore a bridge between eras, a reminder that while the world changes rapidly, some symbols remain constant. Abraham Lincoln himself remains one of the most revered figures in American history, and his presence on the penny gives the coin a moral and emotional weight beyond its monetary value. Lincoln represents unity, perseverance, and the struggle for freedom and equality. When you hold a 1987 D penny, you are holding a tiny portrait of a man whose decisions shaped the destiny of a nation. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse reinforces this connection, serving as a stone-built tribute that has witnessed countless historic events, from civil rights marches to presidential speeches. In this way, the design of the penny turns a small piece of metal into a portable monument. Collectors often talk about the journey of a coin, and the 1987 D penny is no exception. Some of these coins traveled thousands of miles in cash registers, wallets, and piggy banks. Some were lost, dropped into fountains, or buried in the ground, only to be found years later. Others were carefully set aside by sharp-eyed collectors who noticed their pristine condition or unusual features. Each coin has a story, even if that story is never fully known. This sense of mystery and personal history adds another layer of value that goes beyond price tags and auction results. The market for Lincoln cents, including the 1987 D, is global. Collectors in the United States, Europe, Asia, and beyond all participate in buying, selling, and trading these coins. Online marketplaces, coin shows, and auctions allow a 1987 D penny found in a small American town to end up in a collection halfway around the world. Prices fluctuate based on demand, availability, and the discovery of new varieties or errors. When a particularly rare 1987 D error is reported, it can spark renewed interest in the entire year, causing collectors to search through their own coins in hopes of finding something similar. All of this means that the humble 1987 D penny is far more than just a piece of small change. It is a product of industrial precision, a carrier of historical memory, a potential treasure chest of hidden varieties, and a symbol of continuity in a changing world. As collectors continue to study and discover new aspects of this coin, its story continues to grow, becoming richer and more complex with every passing year, and this is only a small part of the vast narrative that surrounds this remarkable 1-cent piece. The deeper one goes into the world of the 1987 D 1-cent coin, the more it begins to feel less like a simple piece of pocket change and more like a miniature universe of history, art, economics, and human emotion. Every collector who has ever searched through rolls of pennies knows that feeling of anticipation, the quiet hope that among thousands of ordinary coins there might be one extraordinary survivor. The 1987 D penny lives inside that dream, because it comes from a time when billions were made, yet only a tiny fraction have survived in truly perfect or unusual form. When the Denver Mint struck these coins, it was working at incredible speed. The pressure applied to each planchet was enough to permanently stamp Lincoln's image into metal, and yet that same speed meant that small mistakes were inevitable. Tiny bits of dust, grease, or metal could get caught between the die and the blank, creating what collectors call struck-through errors. On a 1987 D penny, such an error might look like a strange line, a missing letter, or a smooth patch where detail should be. To someone who doesn't understand coins, it might look like damage, but to a trained eye, it can be the signature of a genuine mint error, something that happened in the split second when the coin was born. There are also die deterioration effects that show up strongly on many late 1980s pennies. Because the mint was producing so many coins, the dies wore out quickly. As a die deteriorates, the details it produces become softer and sometimes distorted. Letters can look thicker, Lincoln's face can appear slightly swollen, and the Lincoln memorial columns can blur together. While some collectors avoid these coins, others see them as a snapshot of the mint's struggle to balance quantity with quality, making them interesting historical artifacts in their own right. The emotional side of collecting is just as important as the technical side. People often remember the first time they learned that a simple penny could be worth more than 1 cent. It might have been a story about a rare 1909 SVDB or a 1943 copper penny, but that spark of curiosity often leads them to examine every penny they encounter. The 1987 D penny becomes part of that lifelong habit. Even though it is from a modern era, it still carries the possibility of surprise. Someone might find a beautiful uncirculated example in a forgotten jar of change, or an error coin tucked away in an old collection, and suddenly that ordinary year becomes unforgettable. The idea of a massive market value, sometimes spoken of in dramatic terms like hundreds of millions of dollars, represents more than just money. It represents the human desire to discover something rare, something unique, something that no one else has. In theory, if a one-of-a-kind 1987 D penny were found, with an extraordinary error, perfect condition, and a story that captured the public's imagination, its value could skyrocket far beyond anything most people would expect from a 1-cent coin. While such scenarios are extremely rare, they are not impossible, and that possibility is what keeps collectors searching. The copper-plated zinc composition of the 1987 D penny also plays a role in its long-term survival. Over time, the thin copper layer can wear through, exposing the gray zinc beneath. Moisture can cause zinc to corrode, leading to bubbling, pitting, or even holes. Because of this, high-quality 1987 D pennies are actually harder to find than one might think, even though billions were made. The environment is constantly working against these coins, and only those that were carefully stored or quickly removed from circulation have a chance to remain in pristine condition decades later. There is also a poetic contrast between the small value of the penny and the enormous legacy of the man it depicts. Abraham Lincoln guided the United States through one of its darkest periods and helped end slavery, yet his image appears on the lowest value coin in circulation. This choice was intentional, meant to keep Lincoln close to the people, in every pocket and every hand. The 1987 D penny continues that tradition, spreading Lincoln's image across the nation and the world, one tiny coin at a time. As time passes, the number of 1987 D pennies in circulation slowly decreases. Coins are lost, damaged, melted, or simply discarded. This natural attrition means that the supply of high-quality examples shrinks every year, which in turn can increase their desirability among collectors. What is common today can become scarce tomorrow, especially in the upper levels of condition. This slow transformation from everyday object to collectible artifact is one of the most fascinating aspects of numismatics. All of these elements, minting technology, historical context, human curiosity, and the slow passage of time, come together in the story of the 1987 D 1-cent coin. It is a story that continues to unfold as new coins are discovered, new collections are built, and new generations of collectors take up the search. And even though it is small enough to be overlooked, this penny carries within it a vast world of meaning, value, and endless fascination. As the years move forward, the 1987 D penny quietly takes on a new role, shifting from everyday money into a historical artifact. When it was first released, no one paid special attention to it. It bought candy, newspapers, stamps, and small everyday items. It passed through countless hands, registers, and pockets. Yet now, decades later, it stands as a witness to a specific moment in American history, frozen in metal. Every tiny scratch or mark on its surface tells a story of where it has been and how it has traveled. The Denver Mint itself has a long and proud history, and the D-Mint mark on the 1987 penny connects it to that legacy. The Denver facility began operations in the early 20th century and quickly became one of the most important mints in the country. By 1987, it was producing billions of coins a year, using high-speed presses and modern quality control systems. Still, even with all that technology, human oversight and mechanical wear meant that no two coins were ever truly identical. That is why collectors can spend a lifetime studying pennies from a single year and still find new variations. Some 1987 D pennies show unusually strong strikes, where the design elements appear sharp and bold, almost as if the coin were carved rather than pressed. Others show weaker strikes, with flat areas and soft details. These differences can come from variations in press pressure, die condition, and even the hardness of the metal blanks. To a trained collector, these details matter greatly, because they help determine not only a coin's grade but also its character and uniqueness. There is also a deep connection between coin collecting and memory. Many people remember using pennies like the 1987 D in their childhood, perhaps saving them in jars or spending them on small treats. Finding one today can feel like touching the past, a physical reminder of a simpler time. This emotional connection adds another layer of value that cannot be measured in dollars. For some collectors, a coin is priceless not because of what it could sell for, but because of the memories and feelings it evokes. The market for 1987 D pennies continues to evolve. As more collectors become interested in modern coins, attention shifts from only the rarest early dates to later years that were once ignored. High-grade modern coins, especially those with perfect surfaces and brilliant luster, are becoming increasingly desirable. A 1987 D penny in top condition can stand out among thousands of ordinary examples, and when such a coin is certified by a major grading service, it gains credibility and visibility in the marketplace. The idea of a massive market value, even one as dramatic as hundreds of millions of dollars, reflects the extreme end of what rarity, condition, and demand can create. It is the ultimate expression of what happens when something common becomes extraordinary. While most 1987 D pennies will never reach such heights, the fact that even a small chance exists keeps the dream alive for collectors everywhere. The symbols on the coin also deserve continued reflection. The words "In God We Trust" remind us of the spiritual foundation that has long been part of American identity. Liberty speaks to the freedom that Lincoln fought to preserve. E pluribus unum emphasizes unity, a theme that was central to Lincoln's life and leadership. These are not just words, they are ideas that have shaped a nation, and seeing them on a small copper-colored coin gives them a quiet but powerful presence in everyday life. In the end, the 1987 D penny is a meeting point between the ordinary and the extraordinary. It is small enough to be overlooked, yet rich enough to inspire wonder. It is worth 1 cent in commerce, yet it can be worth far more in history, memory, and potential. Each time someone picks up a penny and looks closely, the story continues, and the humble 1987 D remains a shining example of how even the smallest objects can hold vast meaning. As more time passes, the 1987 D penny becomes increasingly removed from its original role as simple spending money and moves deeper into the world of collecting, study, and appreciation. Coins that once jingled in pockets and drawers now sit carefully inside albums, flips, and protective holders, examined under magnifying glasses and bright lights. Every line on Lincoln's face, every column on the memorial, every tiny dot or mark on the surface becomes important, because each one tells something about how that particular coin was made and how it has survived. One of the most fascinating things about the 1987 D penny is how it can look so different from one example to another, even though they were all made from the same designs and materials. Some coins have rich, deep copper color, while others appear lighter or slightly golden. This comes from differences in the thickness of the copper plating and the way the coin has been stored. A penny that sat undisturbed in a dry, dark place may still glow with its original mint luster, while one that spent years in circulation may be dark, spotted, or worn. These variations give each coin a unique personality. Collectors often talk about eye appeal, which is the overall visual impression of a coin. A 1987 D penny with bright surfaces, sharp detail, and no distracting marks can be far more attractive than another coin of the same grade that looks dull or spotted. Eye appeal is subjective, but it plays a powerful role in the market. Two coins with the same technical grade can sell for very different prices depending on how pleasing they look to collectors. The journey of a single 1987 D penny can be almost like a tiny adventure story. It might have started in a bankroll, moved through grocery stores and gas stations, traveled across states, and finally ended up in someone's change jar. Decades later, a collector might open that jar and notice something special about that coin, perhaps its unusually clean surface or a small minting error. In that moment, the penny's life changes. It is no longer just money, it becomes a collectible, something to be protected and studied. The Lincoln Memorial design itself continues to inspire admiration. The idea that Lincoln's seated statue can be seen inside the memorial on a tiny 1-cent coin is almost magical. It shows the skill of the engravers and the power of the minting process. On high-quality 1987 D pennies, this tiny detail can still be visible, giving the coin a sense of depth and artistry that many people never notice unless they look closely. As the collecting community grows and information spreads through the internet, more people become aware of what to look for in modern pennies. This has led to renewed interest in years like 1987, which were once considered too common to be exciting. Now, collectors search for the best examples, the rarest errors, and the most beautiful survivors. Each discovery adds another chapter to the story of the 1987 D penny. In a world where digital money is becoming more common, physical coins take on an almost nostalgic charm. The 1987 D penny reminds people of a time when money was something you could touch, count, and feel. Holding that small coin connects you to millions of others who once held the same design, the same image of Lincoln, and the same symbol of American history. All of this means that the 1987 D penny is far more than its face value suggests. It is a tiny piece of metal with a huge story behind it, shaped by history, technology, and human curiosity. And as long as people continue to search, collect, and wonder, the story of this humble 1-cent coin will never truly end. With every passing year, the 1987 D penny gains a deeper sense of identity as both a collectible and a symbol of its time. What once seemed like a simple coin now feels like a quiet ambassador from the late 1980s, carrying with it the atmosphere of that era. It was a time when people still used cash for almost everything, when pennies mattered in everyday transactions, and when the sound of coins in a pocket was part of daily life. The 1987 D penny is a small survivor from that world. The process that created these coins was both industrial and artistic. Huge presses shaped the metal with incredible force, but the designs they pressed were the result of careful human craftsmanship. The portrait of Lincoln was not just a mechanical image, it was the product of artistic vision, meant to honor one of the greatest leaders in American history. Every 1987 D penny carries that portrait forward, preserving it for future generations in a way that few other objects can. Collectors often enjoy comparing pennies from different mints, and the Denver Mint has its own subtle characteristics. Some collectors believe that Denver minted coins from the 1980s often have slightly stronger strikes or different surface textures compared to their Philadelphia counterparts. Whether or not this is always true, it adds another layer of fascination, encouraging people to look closely at the tiny D beneath the date and think about where and how the coin was made. The zinc core of the 1987 D penny also makes it a kind of time capsule. Earlier pennies were almost entirely copper, but rising metal prices forced the mint to change. This shift tells a story about economics, inflation, and the changing cost of raw materials. In that way, the 1987 D penny is not just about Lincoln or American ideals, but also about the realities of running a modern economy. Many collectors dream of finding something extraordinary, and sometimes the dream comes true in the most unexpected ways. A 1987 D penny might appear in a roll from a bank, in a box of old coins, or even in pocket change. When a collector spots a bright, nearly perfect example or an unusual error, it can feel like discovering buried treasure. That moment of excitement is what keeps people searching, year after year. The idea of immense value, even something as dramatic as hundreds of millions of dollars, reflects how deeply people connect with rarity and uniqueness. It shows that value is not only about metal or denomination, but about story, scarcity, and desire. A single 1987 D penny that stands apart from all others could, in theory, become one of the most famous coins in the world, simply because it would represent something no one else has. Yet even the most ordinary 1987 D penny has its own quiet worth. It has survived decades of handling, changes in the economy, and shifts in how people use money. It still carries Lincoln's face and the words that define American ideals. In that sense, every one of these pennies is a small piece of living history. As long as there are people who care about history, art, and the stories hidden in everyday objects, the 1987 D penny will continue to be studied, collected, and appreciated. It may be small, but its story is vast, stretching from the minting presses of Denver to the hands and hearts of collectors all around the world. The story of the 1987 D penny continues to grow as it moves further away from its year of creation and deeper into the realm of memory and legacy. Each passing decade adds another layer of meaning to this small coin, because it becomes a reminder of how the world once was. In 1987, people did not think about their pennies as future collectibles. They were simply tools of daily life. Yet now, those same pennies are studied, admired, and sometimes even cherished. The surface of a 1987 D penny can reveal much about its journey. Tiny scratches might tell of years spent sliding across countertops or being counted in machines. Smooth, glossy areas might show that the coin was once part of a carefully saved roll. Dark toning could indicate long storage in a drawer or box. Every mark is a silent record of time, and for collectors, reading those records is part of the joy. One of the most interesting things about modern pennies like the 1987 D is that they challenge the idea that only very old coins can be valuable. While age does play a role, condition and rarity are often even more important. A flawless 1987 D penny can be far rarer than a worn coin from a much earlier year. This flips the usual expectations and shows how surprising the world of numismatics can be. At the Lincoln Memorial reverse is also a bridge between generations. For many people, this design is what they remember from their childhood, because it was used for so many decades. The 1987 D penny is part of that long tradition, carrying a design that connects people born in the mid-20th century with those born much later. When the design was finally changed in 2010, it marked the end of an era, making coins like the 1987 D even more special. In hindsight, there is something almost poetic about the idea that a 1-cent coin, so small and often ignored, can hold such a rich story. It is a reminder that value is not always obvious. Sometimes the most meaningful things are the ones we overlook. The 1987 D penny teaches this lesson quietly, simply by existing and waiting to be noticed. Collectors often speak of the thrill of the hunt, and the 1987 D penny is very much part of that. Searching through rolls, jars, and collections for that one perfect or unusual coin can be deeply satisfying. It is a form of exploration, a way of discovering hidden treasures in everyday places. Each find, no matter how small, adds to the collector's personal story. In the end, the 1987 D penny stands as a symbol of how history, art, and human curiosity can come together in the most ordinary objects. It may only be worth 1 cent in the marketplace, but in the world of collecting and memory, it can be worth far more. And as long as people continue to look closely, to wonder, and to dream, the humble penny from 1987 will continue to shine in its own quiet way. As the narrative of the 1987 D penny stretches onward, it becomes clear that this small coin is not just a relic of the past but a living part of a continuing story. Each time someone finds one in an old collection or in a forgotten jar, it is as if a small piece of 1987 is brought back into the present. The coin becomes a bridge between generations, linking those who used it when it was new with those who now study it as a collectible. There is also a powerful sense of discovery tied to this penny. People all over the world have experienced that moment when they look down at a simple coin and realize it might be something special. With the 1987 D penny, that possibility always exists, whether it is because of a rare error, a perfect surface, or simply the beauty of a well-preserved example. This sense of possibility is what keeps collectors engaged and passionate. The materials of the coin also tell a story about their time. The thin copper coating over a zinc core reflects the economic realities of the late 20th century, when the cost of copper made it impractical to continue producing solid copper pennies. In this way, the 1987 D penny is not just about history in a political or cultural sense, but also about the practical challenges of running a modern mint in a modern economy. When people imagine the idea of a penny being worth a fortune, even something as extreme as hundreds of millions of dollars, they are really thinking about the power of rarity and uniqueness. They are imagining a coin that stands alone, a one-of-a-kind survivor that captures the imagination of the entire world. While most 1987 D pennies will never be worth more than a few cents, the dream of finding that extraordinary example is what fuels countless hours of searching and study. The Lincoln portrait on the coin continues to speak across time. Lincoln's comb, thoughtful expression seems almost to watch over the decades, reminding people of the ideals he stood for. On the 1987 D penny, this portrait has traveled through millions of hands, carrying a quiet message of unity, freedom, and perseverance. That emotional and symbolic value cannot be measured by any price guide. As collectors keep sharing information and discoveries, the knowledge about 1987 D pennies grows. New era varieties may be identified, new high-grade examples may be certified, and new stories may be told. Each of these developments adds another thread to the rich tapestry of this coin's history. In the end, the 1987 D penny is a perfect example of how something small can hold something vast. It is a piece of metal that contains art, history, economics, and human dreams all at once. And as long as people continue to look closely at the coins in their hands, this penny will continue to reveal new wonders and new possibilities. As the story of the 1987 D penny reaches even further, it begins to feel almost timeless. This coin, once just another small piece of currency, now stands as a reminder of how everyday objects can quietly carry history through generations. Long after many other things from the 1980s have disappeared or been forgotten, this little 1-cent coin continues to exist, passing from hand to hand, collection to collection, always holding the same image of Lincoln and the same messages stamped into its surface. The passage of time gives the 1987 D penny a kind of dignity. It has endured economic changes, technological revolutions, and shifting lifestyles, yet it remains exactly what it was when it left the Denver Mint. This stability is part of what makes coins so special. They do not change, even as the world around them does. When someone today holds a 1987 D penny, they are touching the same object that someone else touched decades ago, perhaps on the other side of the country, perhaps in a completely different phase of life. Collectors often feel a sense of connection through their coins, and the 1987 D penny is a perfect example of this. It links people who may never meet but who share the same fascination with small details, subtle variations, and hidden stories. A collector in one place might be searching for a perfect example, while another might be cataloging rare varieties, and yet they are both part of the same global community, united by this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc. The dream of finding something incredibly valuable in something so small continues to inspire people. Even if only a handful of 1987 D pennies ever become truly rare and highly prized, the possibility alone gives every coin a sense of potential. It turns every search into an adventure, every jar of change into a treasure chest waiting to be opened. The design itself never loses its power. Lincoln's face, the words of faith and freedom, and the image of the Lincoln Memorial all work together to create a coin that feels meaningful, even to those who are not collectors. The 1987 D penny carries these symbols quietly, reminding anyone who looks at it of the values and history behind them. As time goes on, the number of surviving high-quality 1987 D pennies will only decrease. Coins will be lost, damaged, or forgotten, making the best examples more and more special. This slow fading of supply adds another layer of importance to the coins that remain, especially those that have been carefully preserved. In this way, the 1987 D penny continues to grow in significance. It may be small, but it holds a long story, one that stretches from the minting presses of Denver to the hands of collectors and dreamers all over the world. And that story is still being written, one penny at a time. The journey of the 1987 D 1-cent coin finally comes together as a complete circle, from the moment it was struck inside the powerful presses of the Denver Mint to the day it is discovered, admired, and perhaps treasured by someone decades later. What began as a simple piece of everyday money has slowly transformed into something far greater, a symbol of history, patience, and the hidden potential that lies inside ordinary things. Every 1987 D penny carries the same beginning, but each one lives a different life, traveling through countless hands, places, and moments. The beauty of this coin is not only in its design or metal, but in its endurance. It has survived inflation, changing technology, and shifting ways people use money. It has outlived many of the stores, machines, and even people who once used it. And still, it remains, quietly holding the image of Abraham Lincoln and the values that he represents. In a world that changes quickly, that kind of continuity feels almost powerful. When people speak of enormous values, even figures that sound unbelievable, they are really speaking about how deeply humans are drawn to rarity and meaning. A one-of-a-kind 1987 D penny, with a remarkable story in perfect condition, could in theory become a legend, something that collectors talk about for generations. Whether or not such a coin is ever found, The idea itself keeps curiosity alive and gives every penny a spark of possibility. The copper-colored surface of the 1987 D penny may look simple, but beneath it lies a zinc core and behind it lies an entire era. It reflects the economic decisions of its time, the artistry of its designers, and the industrial power of the United States Mint. It is a tiny time capsule that fits in the palm of your hand. Most of all, this coin reminds people to look closely. In a fast-moving world, it teaches patience and attention. Those who take the time to study their change, to examine the small details, and to learn the stories behind them often discover a deeper appreciation for history and for the objects that surround them. So the 1987 D penny stands as a quiet but powerful example of how something small can carry something huge. It is worth 1 cent in money, but it is worth far more in story, symbolism, and wonder. And as long as there are people who search, collect, and dream, the legacy of this humble 1 cent coin will continue to live on, shining softly across the years.